Welcome students to another session of this course. The title of today's lecture is Vedic Darshan, Meaning and Main Concepts. So we are going to discuss. The agenda on your screen is what is philosophy or darshan in Indian context, what are divisions of Indian philosophy in different schools, are there any specific features of these philosophies, or how schools of philosophy determine Indian thought. And another query may come, why are they integral part of Indian knowledge traditions? So these are certain ideas that come to the mind before entering into the discussion. So let's have a look. Darshan and its origin. So we find that darshan refers to the various schools of philosophical thought in India. Basically the term comes from the Sanskrit language, darshan, and in the West philosophy term is used, but in Indian context the darshan term is used. It's a systematic understanding of reality, existence and human purpose. Indian philosophy is not just an intellectual pursuit but also a means of achieving liberation. So we will see all such aspects of Indian philosophy. The genesis of Indian philosophy is Vedas and Upanishads. Then over the ages, Indian philosophy was influenced by various diversified socio-cultural and religious factors, multidimensional thought, or the attitudes. With the passage of time, they were influenced by the external factors as well as internal meditation, and different types of thoughts also influenced shaping and reshaping the Indian philosophy. So darshan, one meaning of darshan is the Atma Anubhuti, that is the self-realization. In Indian traditions, darshan is used for philosophy, but it is closely associated with the way you perceive, or like a state of mind. So in that aspects, Bharatiya Drishti develops, that is the Indian way of perception, or how you look at the world, how you look at the things or the phenomena, what's happening in and around you, whether inside our thought process, how it is taking shape, how we develop our perception towards the external world, towards the people of the society, towards society itself. That all is shaped or reshaped by the external factors in the form of developing our thoughts or the ideas or the perceptions. Then we developed a Bharatiya Drishti, that is a particular type of, particular way of perceiving the things. In order to define the Indian philosophy, we find this very important adage, Drishyate Yathartha Tattva Manen, by which the ultimate reality is seen. So drish here means whatever we perceive, whatever is visible to you, but this visibility is not because of the external eyes, rather by way of something different from what you utilize as your sense organs. That may be meditation, that may be some inner factors or inner aspects and so on. So do we see by these eyes only? That question may come to mind. These are not the eyes that see, it is the mind that perceives. This is one aspect, this may be one of the aspects. Rather, sometimes you interpret with the help of your mind, whatever the five sense organs perceive, the mind interprets it and gives the meaning or manipulates it. And sometimes some inner aspect is there, that's a conscience, or sometimes your consciousness or your awareness. They also play a very important role in developing a perception towards the world. So the role of eyes are very limited in Indian philosophy. Sometimes when you close the eyes, then you realize a lot many things what eyes cannot perceive. So in that perspective, there are certain peculiarities of the term darshana. Darshana in different schools have their own way to see ultimate reality, vision or perception. Darshan is more than theory, it is vision and experience. Darshan in Indian context means a lived experience or direct realization of the truth, what you perceive at the same time. You are watching or experiencing, you are also perceiving, you are also realizing. Darshana is not merely self-knowledge, that's Atmagyan. Rather, it is self-realization at the same time. So, knowledge about yourself is one aspect, and experience about yourself or about the world, you just correlate it, that becomes the darshana. And you see that on your screen there is a image on the basis of which you see that for the jigyasa emerges in the mind, that is self-inquiry. Then from the self-inquiry, the realization of unity, we move to the next level, and then ultimately the ultimate realization happens, that is the Aham Brahmasmi. So these are the certain adages, or these are the certain Ved Vakyas that happens in the journey of darshana. So what is philosophy? Now in the Western context, we find the term philosophy because darshan comes from Indian context. There is a difference between philosophy and darshana. Philosophy is the Western context. You see on your screen that philosophy comes from philos philosophia, that is love or passion for knowledge. On the other hand, darshan in Indian context means by which the ultimate reality is seen. In the same way, intellectual enterprise, philosophy is intellectual enterprise, but on the darshan side, you may see it is subject to realization. Then again, philosopher is a professional in Western context. In Indian context, darshanik is a saint by nature. But in Western context, you see that they apply the scientific methods, but in Indian context, there is a Bharatiya Drishti, or there is a vision that is developed. Then for the Western philosopher, this world is the limit. The knowledge is confined only to the boundaries of this world. But for an Indian darshanik, entire cosmos beyond time and space is the subject matter. Then within the framework of time and place, for the Western philosopher, but for an Indian philosopher, it is beyond the world, and afterlife is also the subject matter or the periphery of the darshana. And the last point is for the Western philosopher, speculative ideas, thought and abstract theories are the outcomes of philosophy or the methods of philosophy, but for an Indian darshanik, realization, traditions and practical concerns like meditation, like dhyan, like shravan, manan, nididhyasan and so many other ways are the methods, the tools and outcomes of the philosophical analysis. Now coming towards in the West, the term the philosophy has been personified. The figure which is visible on your screen is the thinker, the idea of thinker, because philosophy is basically based on the idea of thinking. So that is the personification of the abstract idea of thinking. That figure comes as one of the sculptures made by the Rodin, based on Divine Commedia by Dante, where he describes the gates of the hell in that book, that epic, Divine Commedia. And on the basis of that description of the gate of hell, this is one of the figures inscribed on the, or described on the gates of the hell. So Rodin, that is the French sculpture, he just materialized this idea into this sculpture. So that becomes the posture of the pose and the expression, what depicts the man in a deep thought, embody the introspective and contemplative nature of philosophical inquiry. That was created by French artist Augustin Rodin during 19th century. It depicts a scene from the Inferno, the first section of Dante's Divine Comedy, what we have already described. So this is the personification of the abstract idea of thinking. The similar idea to personify the idea of darshan or the philosophy are also there in Indian traditions, like you see the Lord Buddha or Mahatma Buddha in the Dhyan Mudra, and another very familiar posture of Lord Shiva, the Yogi Mudra, the same contemplation mode. Or if you see the cross-cultural traditions, a Sufi in the Zikr Khafi position, he is also in the position of meditation. So all these positions reflect the abstract idea of thinking, and thinking is the very basis or the root of the term philosophy. So on the one hand, philosophy in the West is the love for knowledge or the love for the passion, and on the other hand, the thinking or the brooding or the contemplation are the basic elements or the basic starting points of the philosophical inquiry or discourses. So on that point, on the idea or the essence of philosophy, both Indian and Western aspects are almost same. And again you see that the idea of philosophy is also personified, because wisdom comes from the term Sophia. Sophia is the deity of wisdom in the Western world. in the Western traditions, and she is materialized like that. In the many places of the world you see from the different countries, if you collect the data, you find the different depictions are there in Russia, from Russia, Bulgaria to France or some other countries. They depict in their own way. These are the images of the deity Sophia, that is the personified aspect of the wisdom. But in Indian context also we have one deity of knowledge or the wisdom, that is Devi Saraswati. So here in both the traditions of philosophy you find that these ideas are personified also. And philosophy, we have some definitions. If we just go through the interpretation of the term philosophy by the eminent philosophers in Indian context, Adi Shankaracharya in 8th century, Indian saint darshanik, philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, he is known for it. You see, Shankaracharya was an Indian Vedic scholar, philosopher and teacher, known as Acharya of Advaita Vedanta. He said, his famous statement is the Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, that Jagat is illusion, this is Maya, and only the reality is God, that is the Brahma. Philosophy, he says in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya, that philosophy, or basically because he comments on the Vedanta philosophy and he gives his own theory of Advaita Vedanta. So he says philosophy is the pursuit of Brahma, the ultimate reality which is beyond name, form and empirical existence. That's the Nirakar Brahma. It is the realization of non-duality, that is Advaita, where Atma and Brahma are one. So this is one interpretation of philosophy in Indian context. Another philosopher, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, Indian statesman and philosopher, he describes, he argues that philosophy is not just an intellectual exercise, but also a way of life rooted in higher consciousness. So he again defines in his famous composition and idealist view of life, what he composed in 1932, he says, philosophy is a logical inquiry into the nature of reality, a quest for truth that integrates reason, intuition and spiritual experience. So another philosopher, Shri Aurobindo, one of the renowned figures in Indian history of freedom struggle, he was also a saint and philosopher, and he established his ashrama in Pondicherry. Still it is a very serene place. Philosophy, he says, philosophy is an attempt to discover the truth behind the appearances of things and to find the fundamental reality of existence through intuition and spiritual realization. So he gives his idea in the divine, the life divine, what he composed in 1939. So he discusses philosophy as not just rational speculation, but a spiritual discipline aimed at realizing the highest truth. Then again, none but Rabindranath Tagore, one of the greatest Indian who also scored the Nobel Prize for Literature. So Indian Nobel Laureate and educational philosopher. He gives his idea. He saw philosophy as a living experience rather than just an abstract inquiry. He says philosophy is the harmonious blending of reason, intuition and creativity in the pursuit of truth. And again he defines that in the pursuit of truth, beauty and the unity of existence, it is not mere speculation but a way of experiencing the world as an interconnected whole. So his definition is very beautiful, what he describes in The Religion of Man, he composed in 1931. So you see that multiple ways are there described by the Indian philosophers, their own way, but the essence is same, that philosophy or darshana is something what you realize from the inner aspects, not from the outer aspects. So some characteristics on the basis of these definitions are on your screen. Meaning of darshana, right from the Sanskrit root drish, meaning to see or to perceive in the Indian context. It signifies a philosophical vision or perspective towards reality. It again talks about the existence and the liberation. It's not just theoretical knowledge, but also it's a practical part to self-realization. So Indian philosophy is applied or vyavharik, what you say, the practical in nature. Then again, nature of darshan is both intellectual and spiritual. It integrating reasoning with inner experience, and it seeks wisdom, gyan and direct realization rather than mere speculative thought, unlike Western view of philosophy, where speculation is one of the important tools. Purpose of darshan in Indian context, the ultimate goal is moksha, that is liberation or the salvation from the cycle of birth and death, that is the samsara, that is this world sansar. It helps in understanding the nature of the self, that's Atma, the universe, and the supreme reality, that is Brahm or God. Then again, relation with religion. Darshan and religion, dharma, are interconnected. But darshan is more about philosophical inquiry and spiritual understanding. Rather, religion focuses on ritual and devotions or the ways of worshipping the God, the personal God. Or dharma is different from religion. That's another important aspect of Bharatiya darshan. In Indian philosophy, there is a specific terminology. Dharma is one of them. Religion is not the exact translation of the term dharma. It has its own implication like essence, a universal moral order, or the obligations or the duties. These are the interpretations of the term dharma in Indian context. More important, it's the universal moral order. What Vedas says that this is the rit or the naitik vyavastha or the natural or the moral order out of which because of this dharma this entire universe works in an organized way. Then certain integral principles or beliefs are there, like principles of rebirth, that is punarjanma, principles of karma, that is karma siddhant, adhishta, or the principle of sorrows, that is dukkha samudaya, or both spiritual and practical. Darshana develops a way of life, that is drashtikon, or the perception towards life, towards world, towards phenomena and objects and the people of this world. So we come to our another part of discussion, that is the philosophy of Vedas. What do they say? Because this is the definition of darshan what we have discussed so far. Now the very idea of this darshan, Indian darshan, that comes from the Vedas. So what are the philosophies of the Vedas? In a nutshell, we will try to comprehend it. Vedas are the oldest of all compositions in literary history of the world, because in one of the lectures we have already discussed in detail the different aspects of Vedas. So here we are just focusing on the philosophical ideas that come from Vedas. They are intellectual asset for the whole humanity, no doubt. Radhakrishnan says there is philosophical tendency in the suktas of Rig Veda, the hymns or suktas or what you say the mantras, because they do not explain the mystery of this world, but any superhuman or supernatural insight. They don't, the meaning is that they don't explain this, the mystery of this entire universe, that it has been created by any superhuman or supernatural activity or insight, rather by independent inquiry by reasoning. They don't claim, but they say that there is a way to inquire it, you just meditate it, you just try to find out the reality. So they don't explain, they don't give any theory, rather they keeps the way, they provide you a way to inquire the reality of this world. That's why by which ultimate reality is seen, because they are not providing a theory to be accepted by you. You have to find out by your own efforts. That is the way how Vedas says. Vedas thinks for aims of life, achievement of knowledge and prosperity, mechanism to get rid of sorrows and fear of death too. So because the Vedic people or the Aryans, they were more interested in making the life prosperous and full of bliss. And the ways for all such things go through your good deeds and the performance or the karmas or the jnanas also. So these are the ways that they were more confined to these aims of life. That's why they divided the entire life into the four categories based on the four aims: dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So moksha comes at the end. Later on, some philosophical schools developed on these basic ideas that come from the Vedas. But we are talking about the initial aspects. Many ideas are not emerging here, but they will emerge in later Vedic period, or when we will just enter into the Aranyak Granth and the Upanishads. Because in Smriti Granths, or not Smriti, but Samhitas, that is the four Vedas, and the Brahman Granths, the philosophy is not emerging, but ideas are there. So they logically aspire for a life full of prosperity and freedom from all fetters of cycle of birth and death, a later concept, because Vedas are not talking about the Punarjanam, or they are not providing the idea in a very clear or very comprehensive way about the Swarg or Nark. They talk about on the basis of the bounties of the Swarg, not because of the karmas or something. So karma theory is not existing here, but the ideas of karma theory are there, but later on they will be developed in a organized way. So origin of the word, what Vedas says on it, Jagat, word is no, word is real, that is no Maya. But later on you see that Sankaracharya says that Jagat is Maya. So here the seeds of the ideas are also there, but because they are more confined to the nature. Whatever is visible, that is world. The nature is the world, and the idea of the Brahm or idea of the God vested in the existence of nature. So in that way, Jagat world is real. Whatever they perceive, only that is the reality. It is well, but this is different from the idea of Charvak. Don't be confused with the Pratyaksh Praman. Here, just because these are the initial thoughts in the Vedas, but later on you see that gradually the thoughts will be converted into the philosophical analysis. Then it is well organized and in order by the deities. So they are of the views that this entire universe is well organized by the deities, and the business of the entire universe is run by the deities, by the devtas. 33 devtas were conceptualized. World, or that is universe, has been, world is not confined only this earth, rather earth is just the part of universe. So here world means the universe has been created by pre-existing tapas. That is, unknown consciousness was there. When Nasadiya Sukta in Rig Veda that describes that there was no Sat, no Asat, no Akash, no Antriksh, or there was no death except Him. And what is that Him? That is one unknown consciousness. What later on they called it the Brahm. But here they are saying that this is the unknown consciousness, or He was only existing. Some other suktas suggest origin of universe by fire, or Soma created earth, sky, day, night and water. So when that He created this universe from an unknown source, and out of those sources so many other things were created. So this was like a chain reaction, that from one element to another element was created. So this initial ideas of the creation of this world is inherited in the Nasadiya Sukta, and another sukta is Hiranyagarbha is also there, and Purush Sukta is also there. So three suktas are very important in Rig Vedic in order to understand the creation of this universe or the social order. Then the similar thought also emerged in ancient pre-Socratic philosophers like Anaximander or the Thales. He says that water was fundamental principle, or the Heraclitus argued the universe originated from fire, which is in a state of constant flux, and so on. So here you can see these ideas are, I have explained it on another slide. You see Western similarities of thought. Like Thales says that water was fundamental principle. Heraclitus is another ancient pre-Socratic philosophers. He argued the universe originated from fire, which is in a state of constant flux. That is, everything changes. His very famous line is, no man can ever step in the same river twice, because neither the river is same or nor the person is same if you step twice in the same river. So everything is changing, everything is in the flux, constant changing. And Anaximander, a pre-Socratic philosopher, proposed that the universe originated from an infinite and indefinite substance called the apeiron, which he believed was neither water nor any other known element. Some other philosophers, pre-Socratic reflexors, would include Anaxagoras or the Empedocles, who proposed that reality is composed of multiple fundamental elements and forces that interact to create change. The idea what was given by the Kanad, who says that the earth has come out of the molecules, that is the Parmanuvad. So why we are taking the sources from the Western philosophies? Because while just endorsing the principles and the theories of Indian knowledge traditions, sometimes we may not be confused that the idea whatever we are depicting, the same idea has not been created or thought by any other or in the world or any other places. People also think in the same way, the way we think, at different point of time, at different places. So it doesn't mean that whatever we are thinking, nobody is thinking in the world. So that's why comparative study is very important. Mere claim that only all the knowledge comes to my province, that's not the rationalistic way. So that's why we always have to be ready for a comparative analysis of the ideas. That's right that Vedas are older as compared to the Western philosophies, but they also thought in the same way on the same pattern. Vedic thought are concerned with the two aspects of the Vedas. One is the Gyan Kanda or another is the Karma Kanda. So entire content of the Vedas, the four Vedas are divided on two bases. Gyan Kanda is concerned with the knowledge aspects or the spiritual thinking, or Karma Kanda aspects is concerned with the rituals or the ideas of the worshipping. So meditation, pure thoughts, so many elements are highly appreciated in the Vedas or expected from the human being, from the seekers of the knowledge, from the households, from the people. Because at that time, Gurukuls were not so organized as we find in the Upanishadic period. So this time, the Gramani or the Kulpati or the family heads or the head of the family like the father or the eldest son, these people were responsible for maintaining the social order or the social systems or spiritual enlightenment or social responsibilities and so on. So certain aspects were expected from these people, like meditation, pure thought. A pure heart is also self-purification, or tapasya, that is the ascetic life, or the stuti, recitation of the names of the deities or the gods, are considered essential for it. For what? For the gyan or for the karma. Rit is called as the moral law and its god is Varuna. Rit is one of the aspects, that is, this is responsible for the Rit is what? It refers to cosmic order that holds the organized way of the working of this universe and all celestial bodies, this moon, this stars or the trees or the sky, all are in their perfect order. So what is responsible for that perfection? That they don't bother each other, and time is very important element, but there's no, this entire universe is working on a set pattern in an organized way without any disturbance. Everything is set. So who is responsible for that perfect cosmic order? That is the Rit, and the god for this Rit, the Naitik Vyavastha or the moral order, is Varun. He is called the Devta, Naitikta ka Devta. Then Rit concept gives birth to karma theory in later thought, because that Rit, if it will be disturbed, if people will not do according to the system upon which this society is based, this universe is based. If a human being or the man interpret what you say, that interfere in that system, that it will be disturbed, and then he will suffer later on. So this the pre-idea about the results of your works or the actions will bring you the sufferings that gave birth the karma theory in the later thought. The idea of rebirth is not clear even in the Rig Veda. It is later concept, Punarjanama, but it is not well presented at this stage. Swarg and Nark ideas are vague, only described on the basis of the prosperous life and life in the darkness. So Nark is considered a place where you will not find any facilities, rather it is a place where there is a lot of darkness and you will suffer a lot. But Swarg is a place where more facilities are available as compared to in this world. So more licentious life is there, more luxuries are there, more comfort is there. So that's why Swarga is a place that is just described on the basis of prosperity of life, because these people were very much interested in making the life full of prosperity and luxuries. But at the same time, what you say, the Sada Jivan Uch Vichar, the idea what Mahatma Gandhi also made the basis of his life, that comes from this idea of Vedic philosophy, that you have to live a simple life, but your ideas are very high. So on that basis, God is one and only. but he is personified in different ways. The idea of God is described on three patterns. Monotheism is also there, that God is only one. Polytheism is also there, that so many deities and god and goddesses are there, but they work under the guidance of only one supreme God. Or the final monism is there, that these polytheism and monotheism are not the two separate entities, rather one is the reflection of another. So both are the reflection of each other, that's why it's called the monism. So this idea gave later on the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta to the Shankaracharya. So all the seeds are here in the Vedic thought. Now coming towards the another idea of exploring Upanishads, because Upanishads are the highly philosophical creations. Literal meaning of Upanishads is sitting down near, or referring to the disciple sitting near the Guru to receive secret to esoteric knowledge. Or often scenes are laid in the ashramas, gurukuls, assemblies of kings and places of sacrifice. So because this period comes long after, so well organized ashramas were there and people led a life based on the varnashram vyavastha. And people used to leave the household affairs or the families at the age of 50. They used to go to the forest, they lived there, and they used to teach there. And at the age of 75, they used to lead a life of asceticism, extreme asceticism, salvation, isolation. So all such practices gave birth to this ashram vyavastha, and students used to go and live in a residential form of education. That's a gurukul. So there the Upanishadic ideas developed, and they also were transferred from one generation to another generation by Guru Shishya Parampara, by the ways of Shrutis. But they gave birth to the highest form of philosophy in Indian knowledge traditions. We find highest form of dialogism, conversation and samvad on esoteric aspects. You see that various traditions of learning, question answers patterns, and the court scenes are there, Raja Janak and Gargi and Yagvalka Samvad and Yamnachiketa Samvad. So many dialogues are there, storytellings are there, pedagogical aspects are very strong. They deal with the six primary concepts: Brahma, Maya, Atma, Avidya, Sansar and Karma. So Upanishads militated against the whole of Karma Kanda, or the path of ritual. So they are just like the revolution, the spiritual revolution against the overemphasis of the Karma Kanda in Vedic period. So that's why they just are based on the spiritualistic or the philosophical aspects or the Gyan Kanda aspects, not the Karma Kanda aspects. The way had already lost its charm and had become mechanical and meaningless. So Upanishads discourage sacrifices and reduce them to a subordinate position as they compare it to the leaky boats. Alternatively, they raise the status of tapas or the penance, of meditation, of knowledge, of spiritual disciplines. The philosophy of the Upanishads would include that basics of the Vedas, karma, rituals for prosperous life. But we can make a difference between the Vedic ideas and the Upanishad, then it would be easier to understand. Upanishads are different from Vedas in one aspect, that is Karma Kand. They don't promote it. This is one idea. Then basics of Upanishads are basically, basis of Vedas are karma, rituals for prosperous life, but the basis of Upanishads are Gyan, contemplation, philosophical thinking regarding ultimate reality, life and death. So they don't give more emphasis or any kind of emphasis on the karma kanda or the certain kinds of the ritualistic aspects. Rather, meditation is more important there. Vedic Rishi or seers, center of thought of Vedic Rishis was the nature and its different forms. Outside nature or polytheism was more important to the Vedic Rishis or seers. But for an Upanishadic Rishi, center of thought was inside the conscience of the heart. That was nature inside, not nature outside. Soul, Brahma, one ultimate truth, or Atma is part of Paramatma. So everything was concentrated on inside rather than. So that's why many great philosophers of India like Swami Vivekananda also takes the definition from the Upanishadic, this idea of inner thought. He says that education is the manifestation of the perfection already in man. So that perfection is already inherent. He takes the Vedic ideas, the Upanishadic ideas, to define his definition of education. And Mahatma Gandhi also takes the idea, the basic idea, to define the term education. He says that education is the drawing out of the best in body, mind and spirit. So how to draw out something which is already there in the conscience, in the spirit of the child, spirit of the student. So that is to be dig it out, not to pour something from outside like the spoon feeding. The education is not to be fed to the students like the banking concepts of Paulo Freire. Rather, it is already there. The perfection is already there. So again, you see basic concepts we have already discussed: Brahma, Maya, Atma, Vidya, Sansar, Karma, Guru, Shishya, meditation, penance. Or you see these are the concepts on your screen: Brahma, Atma, Maya, Karma. So you may pause the screen or you may go through it. We have already discussed it, and also in other lectures we have also discussed it. Now the basic terminology of darshan in Indian context. Because in order to understand the Bharatiya darshan or Indian philosophy, some terminologies are very specific. In the very first and second lecture, we also concentrated, and third lecture, on the terminology in order to understand this Indian knowledge tradition in the entire way. So, in the context of darshan or Bharatiya darshan, three types of karma are to be understood: Sanchit, Prarabdha and Sanchayaman, in order to understand the karma theory, the philosophy of karma siddhant. And the four purusharthas are there: dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So they are the original terms. I don't think that there is any translation in any other language. The way you understand them in any other language, that may change the meaning by the interpretation. So that's why essence is there. If you just take the meaning or an interpretation from the original language, that is in Sanskrit, then it would be easier to understand the very essence of Bharatiya darshan. Then three types of dukkha are there: adhidevik, adhibhautik or adhyatmik. So I don't think that you can translate it in any other language. So these are the original terms. That's why basic terminology to darshan is very important: Tirguna, Sat, Rajas and Tamas. So these are the based on the Sankhya philosophy. Three methods of learning: Shravan, Manan and Nididhyasan. Then three yogas are there: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. That aspect comes from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the philosophy of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. We have already discussed it. One philosophy from Patanjali, that is one of the six schools of Indian philosophy. And this idea, three yoga, comes from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, that is by Lord Krishna. Then two types of Vidya, Para and Apara. One is worldly knowledge, another is spiritual knowledge beyond this world. Then Mahavakyas, Aham Brahmasmi is one of them. Then six pramans of knowledge. So there are certain evidences of knowledge that play very important role in understanding the darshanic aspect of, philosophical aspect of Indian thought. Pratyaksh, Anuman, etc. There are four or more there. Then four Purusharthas, Dharma, we have already discussed it. Then some Mahavakyas are there, called the Mahavakyas. You may say the perennial or the statements or the adages, whatever you may call, but in Indian context they are called the Mahavakyas. Prajnanam Brahma, insight is Brahma, Aitreya's Upanishads. Then Ayam Atma Brahma, this self Atma is Brahma, Mandukya Upanishad says. Then Tattvatvam Asi, that essence, the existent are you, Chandogya Upanishad says. And then Aham Brahmasmi, so that is the ultimate journey where you realize I am Brahma, Vrihadaranyaka Upanishad. So that journey goes from Prajnanam Brahma, that insight is Brahma, to the Aham Brahmasmi. That entire journey is the ultimate goal of Indian philosophy, that is the Bharatiya darshan. So six pramans are also there, another terminology. These are the on your screen: Pratyaksha, Anuman, Shabda, Upaman, Arthapatti and Anuplabdhi. And different schools of philosophy have their different ideas about this validity of knowledge. Charvaka accepts only one praman, that is Pratyaksha. Vedanta accepts all the six pramans. Or some other schools, they actually Nyaya theory gave this six pramans of Nyaya, schools of philosophy give these six pramans. But depending on the need or their own interpretation, every school of philosophy in Indian context, they accept accordingly. So some suggested readings are on your screen. You may go through for understanding the deeper aspects of Indian philosophy. So I just wind up with these beautiful words of Socrates: I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. Thank you very much. See you in the next lecture. God bless you. Take care.